10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 313. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 313 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you're all doing well out there. We are back with our usual Tune of the Month episode, and this month, you probably already guessed it, we're going to take a look at the tune Pennies from Heaven, which is what we did our Lick of the Month on last episode. This is a classic jazz composition with great changes, and we're going to be talking about some of the concepts that we covered in the last episode, and hopefully give you something new to work on this week. So before we jump into the podcast, as always, just wanted to remind you that this is a listener-supported show, which means we do not have any advertisements on the program except for this one, and instead we rely on support in the form of a small monthly donation from listeners just like you. So if you want to check out what you get in return for that small donation, including a PDF and audio examples for every single episode, go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com. Click on one of the Patreon banners. You will get over there and you have the chance to sign up to get instant access to all of that stuff. Wanted to give a quick shout out to a bunch of new patrons this week. Thank you to our new $5 patrons, Michael, Tommy, and Luke. Thank you to our new $3 patrons, Philip and Richard. And I want to also say thank you to Carl and Dieter for editing your pledges from $3 up to $5. Those are people that are all getting the benefits of PDFs for all these episodes. So again, if you want to join that crew and support the podcast, go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners. You get instant access to everything that we've ever done. All right, let's jump into the episode. First of all, I really want to thank a lot of you that have reached out to me over the past couple weeks asking if the family is feeling better. And unfortunately, just as we were getting over our last terrible sickness, my daughter came down with COVID, and now all of us are dealing with the fallout from all having COVID in this household. So you might notice I sound a little bit funny today. I think I am over the worst part of it. So is my daughter and so is my wife. But there are some serious lingering symptoms, and I'm just happy that I was able to get this episode out this week after all that we've been dealing with. So thanks for everybody for reaching out, and that is the current state of the Maynella household. You know, normally in these Tune of the Month episodes, I like to write a nice long etude, 2 choruses, something like that. This week I was lucky to get one done, just dealing with a sick baby and dealing with being frankly exhausted all the time because of this. COVID is no joke, I gotta say. It has not been fun. So anyway, just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on over here. Now let's actually jump into the episode. So we talked about the way that Stan Getz was using these diatonic triads in our Lick of the Month, and that was the thing that I chose to highlight when I wrote this etude over Pennies from Heaven. Was I wanted to use a bunch of these diatonic triads throughout the etude, give you a sense of how I would actually put them into action after we talked about a bunch of those ideas using diatonic triads last week. But before we listen to the etude and talk about it a little bit, let's talk about the chord progression in Pennies from Heaven. So first of all, it is a standard A-B form, 32 measures with 16 measure sections. It is also in the key of concert C, and let's dive right into the first half here. So we see the tune start off with a nice C6 chord, and then we have this really cool little walk down where it goes from E minor to E flat diminished, which is leading us down to a D minor chord, which is giving us a 2-5 back to C. Then we see that same thing happen again. The walk down, again back to D minor, to G, 2-5. But now we don't go back to 1. Now what we do is we start a 2-5 to the key of the 4. So this is a 2 of 4, and then we have a 5 of 4, and then we're modulating up to that key of F major. right? Then what we have in the last 4 bars of the first half is we have a 5 of 5 chord for 2 bars, and then we have a 5 chord for 2 bars. And that's going to lead us right back to C to start our second half. Now in the second half, we start off just the same as we did with the first half. So again, we have that C6 chord, then we do our walk down again. Then we have 2, 5. Now we depart what we were doing in the first half. Now we're going to modulate to the 4, but we're going to do it in measure 21. So it happens a little bit earlier in the second half than it would in the first half. Modulating to F major. Then we jump to D minor. And then we have this kind of cool chord, which is a B flat 7 sharp 11, which is a 7, a flat 7 chord in the key of C. It's just a kind of nice, unexpected chord movement there that gives the second half a little bit of a different sound than the first half. So then we go in measure 27, we go into a 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And that's how we end the tune, with that nice, like perfect, authentic cadence. But we include the 3/6 to really, really lead us to that 1. So very, very simple form, actually. Not too many weird things going on. You know, that B flat 7 chord might be the strangest thing in there. I also love in measure 2, that little walk down from the E minor 7 to the E flat diminished that leads us really strongly into the 2 chord, which of course leads us into the 5 chord and back around to 1. I think this is just a classic chord progression. It has all those elements, all those really, really beautiful elements of a tune that you know is going to be a classic. Not to mention that the melody is just awesome on this. So this would be a great tune to know. It is mostly played in the key of C, so if you learn in this key, you should be in pretty good shape. All right, now let's turn our attention to the etude. So again, what I've tried to do is I've tried to use diatonic triads in various different inversions and forms to show you how this sound, when used in a creative and fluent way, could really add some beautiful, beautiful sounds to your solo. And it's just another thing that you can add to your toolbox as something that you can pull off. Diatonic triads are great. Improvisers have been using them forever. And I think that over this tune, it particularly lends itself well, just as we heard Stan Getz doing. So let's jump into listening to the etude, have your PDF in front of you. And what I want you to do is have a pencil out and start marking down everywhere you think you hear those diatonic triads, and then we'll talk about some of the obvious places after we get done listening to it. Here we go. All right, so I'm sure that you could hear and see right off the bat some of those places where I was using it, but let's talk about some specific spots. So the first one is measure 3. You could see throughout that entire measure 3 and 4, I'm really utilizing those diatonic triads from the concert C major scale. And I'm playing those across a 2-5-1, and I think it works really, really well. As long as you resolve everything correctly and come out of it in a cool way, it could really work across those 2-5-1s. Now, the other place that I'm using it, that's pretty obvious, is measure 9. And it's kind of the same thing. There, I took a lot of inspiration from Stan Getz, as you could probably hear. And then I'm also using it in measure 13, 14. And then you'll notice what I did with measure 13 and 14 is I just transposed it to the next chord and did the exact same thing over measures 15 and 16. The next place I'm using it is in measure 20 very, very briefly. And that's about it. Right? So I used it pretty heavily. That's like 4 different places in one chorus. But I also did a lot of other stuff because you don't want to use it too heavily and have that be the only sound in your playing. So it's striking that balance between using it enough and not too much. And like I said, I wish I could have written another chorus to really dive a little bit deeper and develop these ideas. But to tell you the truth, I'm just lucky to have gotten this out. So I hope you enjoy, even though it's a little bit shorter than what I normally put out for the Tune of the Month episode. So hopefully with last week's episode and this week's episode combined, it can give you some great ideas on how to use some of those diatonic triads and incorporate that into your playing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, if you want to become a part of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family, just go over to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, and get yourself signed up today. For a small monthly fee, you do get access to every single episode that we've ever put out. Those PDFs are all living over there. Hope you're all doing well out there, staying safe and healthy. We are not really doing that here, but I wish you all really good health. Do not get COVID. It is no fun. And hopefully I'll be coming at you from a much more healthy place when I talk to you next week. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.